Hey guys, welcome back to another speed paint video, and I am doing the redraw challenge, which basically you just redraw an old picture that you did. So I'm drawing Neo from RWBY, and I'm also doing a challenge from Flying Pings called the Imagination Challenge. And basically you have to draw a rainbow, a flower, a bow, and an umbrella for the challenge. And I'm also doing a walkthrough so that you guys can maybe learn a few tips and tricks on how to draw. I know that I'm not the best artist, and I think this is actually a good thing because it's much easier to learn from someone who's not too far away versus someone who's like on a completely different level. So here I have this on black on an overlay layer, and I'm just going over, I'm making these like little lines going over areas of the hair to parting the hair. And now I'm adding another overlay layer, and it's on black again, and I have this brush with the texture of hair, and I'm just going over all the hair except for areas where I'm going to add the highlights. Usually at those areas I either leave it alone or I just make sure the opacity to the brush is very low over there. And now I'm adding in the highlights just real quick so I'll know where they are. And all this line art, it's on a different layer. So the hair line art, it's on a different layer. The skin is on a different hair layer. The umbrella is on a different layer. And now I'm just doing some touch-ups. Now when you're doing this, it's important to also make sure that there's line depth. I know that you can use the selection tool so the colors won't be out of the lines, but the downfall is when you do that, there will be little white pixels there. So, and either to fix it, either just color in the little pixels, or duplicate the line layer. Now what I'm doing now is adding shading. So for the skin, I have the base color for the skin, and then I'm adding a little darker shade, and I'm putting it all over areas where there will be shading. Now I got to make sure that when I'm doing this, the shading is very thick because I'm going to add more layers, so more darker layers, and I have to make it thick so that those other colors don't overlap the first colors. I know I'm not too good at shading, but I just, put it over the basic areas, like underneath the chin and behind the hair. I usually do this like 3 to 5 times. You could do it as many times as you want. It's the same process, just with a different color that's darker. So here I'm adding a slightly darker color than before. I'm just doing the same thing over the areas with shading. Now I am also going to add another layer, another darker shade, and I'm going to do the same thing again. Make sure they don't overlap, and also make sure that it's not too thick and it's at areas where there is shading. Now you can also add a gradient for the base of the skin. This automatically gives the character more depth and makes it look less flat. Now, I didn't do that here because I already added the shading and it was too late. And I know that she doesn't have a leg. That's because she doesn't have a feet, and that's just because I'm really bad at drawing feet. So now I'm going to blend in the colors. Now, when you blend in, you have to make sure that you don't blend too much where the dark color is completely invisible. You have to make sure it's visible because the dark color is what's going to give it the most depth. Now I'm going to go in the skin and add shades of pink and purple. I put the pink like where the knees are on the thighs, and I put the purple usually where the shading is, and then I lower the opacity and I blend it into the skin. Now I'm going to add the highlights, and I'm using a round brush for the highlights. I usually put the highlights on the thighs, around the shoulders. Those are usually where the highlights are, and especially where the shading is. The darker shade behind it, that's usually where a highlight is. And now I'm going to change the color of her hair because the character design has 2 different colors of hair. And the reason why it was all one color before, because it's much easier to just change the color afterwards with the selection tool versus working with completely 2 different colors, because then I'll have to use twice the amount of layers. Now I'm just doing the eye, and with the eye, it's very simple. I just add an overlay layer for the base. Either use the same color for the base or just use white. And I just use a small airbrush and then put it in the eye. Now I'm adding a gradient for her umbrella because the character Neo, she carries around with her an umbrella. But this is a beach umbrella just to fit the theme of my drawing. And her umbrella has a lot of details, but yeah, that's it has too much detail. So I'm just gonna keep it simple and draw little hearts and swerves in another piece that I saw as a reference. Now I already added the shading in her umbrella, and now I'm changing the color of the line art. So like I said, the line art is on different layers, so I have to change the color to match the hair so that it blends in more and it doesn't look too off. Now I'm just going to flat color her clothes on another layer. This is just flat coloring. It's important to just tweak around and see what colors work with the piece and what colors don't. In Flying Pink's challenge, you had to draw a bow, a rainbow, an umbrella, and a flower. So I just want to make sure that everything is there. So the umbrella, she's holding the umbrella, the bow is on her bikini, and then the flower is also on her bikini. And now what I'm doing is drawing sand. Now I don't really know how to draw sand. I'm just putting a bunch of colors together and experimenting a little. You could see I do some experiments because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going for here. And I also did a quick Google search of what how to blend, not how to blend, but like how the colors blend in the ocean, because that's fairly different from the sky. So you want to have this green color. I don't use the gradient tool, I just make my own. Like what I did with the skin, I used the gradient tool. So I just have like green and then a little turquoise and then light blue, dark blue. And then I just blend it in and make sure to add whites at the tips, because in the pictures, the ocean pictures that I was looking at, they had like the little whites around the water. I don't know what those are called, but I try to draw them and add a lot of texture to the sand. And now the texture is, the tool I'm using is charcoal. It's called charcoal. And I just use that for the sand. And now I'm drawing the rainbow. So I'm doing this, I'm gonna use the same techniques that I used for the sea to draw the sea for the rainbow. So I draw it, use the colors, drop the opacity, and then I have to tweak it a little to make it fit the picture more. And then I also have to make sure to blend it well, but not blend it too much where the colors overlap. And now I'm going to experiment and see where I want to add highlights. It's very important to make sure you don't add too many highlights because it'll make your picture seem too much and overwhelming. So I'm changing the highlights in the color of the hair. Remember, when I changed the hair color, the highlight stayed because it's on a different layer. The highlights of the hair is on a different layer. And adding some highlights to the sand as well, and a little designs around her umbrella. So this is the Flying Pink's challenge and also my redraw challenge.